Welcome to Forgotten TV, the podcast that brings you TV memories of the 70s and 80s, with a focus on short-lived TV shows, pilots, and made-for-TV movies. I'm Chris Cooling.
Stand by to raise ship. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0! Rocket away!
Saturday morning TV. For decades, the morning and evening network TV schedules were aimed at adults, but Saturday morning was for kids. Prior to the cartoon takeover of the 1960s, Saturday morning TV in the 1950s was originally filled with live-action shows. Whether it was the sci-fi adventure of Tom Corbett, Space Cadet, the heroics of war hero Captain Midnight.
It's Captain Midnight! Brought to you by Kix, the crispy corn cereal that's 83% energy food. Kix, food for action.
Or the slapstick comedy of The Pinky Lee Show.
From Hollywood, California, we bring you the Pinky Lee Show with a carload of gags, giggles, and games for everybody. And now...
All were brought to you by nutritionally questionable breakfast food. Starting around 1962, we started to see Saturday morning TV come into its own with cartoons like Bugs Bunny, Mighty Mouse, and the Jetsons taking over the schedule. And by the fall of 1966, almost every single show on Saturday morning was animated. Then, around 1970, we started to see some odd live-action shows pepper the schedule. And those are the subject of this episode of Forgotten TV. Now, instead of the usual deep dive into the credits, episode titles, and plots, we're just going to have some fun and take a kooky look at the weirdest Saturday morning shows I could find. Why? This is Saturday morning TV in the 70s, where plot and storyline takes a back seat to visuals and concepts, and let's face it, viewers were less sophisticated and didn't have a lot of choice anyway, unlike today with essentially unlimited viewing options when you can count YouTube, Netflix, and other streaming platforms on top of cable and satellite. Most audiences likely had 3 networks, PBS, and maybe 1 or 2 UHF channels to choose from. But we're going to have no shortage of trivia and tidbits about each show to share. Oh, I almost forgot. My nephew Tommy will join us with his spontaneous reactions to each show. It's Saturday Morning Weirdness on this episode of Forgotten TV.
It's Saturday Morning Weirdness on this episode of Forgotten TV.
I just said that. So, what is the criteria for inclusion on this episode? Well, the TV show had to be aired on Saturday morning during the Forgotten TV era of 1970 to 1989. And it had to be a national broadcast, not local. Saturday morning TV once upon a time was filled with local shows. It wasn't until fall of 1969 that all 3 networks provided programming from 7 a.m. Central to 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And it has to be a live-action TV show aimed at a kid audience. So, with that criteria, I've come up with at least 10 shows that fit the bill. So much of the weirdness we're about to consider is visual, and I've created a playlist on YouTube, complete with extra features, and I encourage you to follow along by watching the videos on the YouTube playlist. The link to that is in the show notes. Number 1. It's 1969 with H.R. Pufnstuf. With its original 17-episode run barely making it into the Forgotten TV era, H.R. Pufnstuf came on NBC in fall of 1969, and although they had previously designed the costumes on the banana splits, this was the first effort in live-action, life-sized puppetry by the infamous Sid and Marty Krofft, names we will hear again and again on these episodes. The show was successful enough for NBC to keep it on the Saturday morning schedule through the summer of 1972, and the show was picked up and reran on ABC on Saturday morning for another year before it was syndicated, and in the following decades has been run on TV Land and MeTV. It was even adapted to a feature film in 1970. Starring 16-year-old Jack Wilde, fresh off his performance as the Artful Dodger in the film Oliver, Jack played 11-year-old Jimmy on the show. Also starring Cass Elliot, Martha Ray, Billy Barty, and Felix Silla, featuring the voice talents of Walker Edmondson, Joan Gerber, Al Melvin, yes, Sam the Butcher from the Brady Bunch, as well as legendary voice actor Don Messick. So, Tommy, are you ready for the opening segment?
Oh, God.
HR Pufnstuf, who's your friend when things get rough? HR Pufnstuf, can't do a little 'cause he can't do enough.
Once upon a summertime, just a dream from yesterday, a boy in his magic golden flute heard a boat from off the bay.
Come and play with me, Jimmy, come and play with me, and I will take you on a trip far across the sea.
But the boat belonged to a kooky old witch who had in mind the flute to snitch.
From her broom broom in the sky, she watched her plans materialize. She waved her wand, the beautiful boat was gone. The skies grew dark, the sea grew rough, and the boat sailed on and on and on and on and on and on.
But Pufnstuf was watching too and knew exactly what to do. He saw the witch's boat attack, and as the boy was fighting back,
he called his rescue racer crew as often they'd rehearsed, and off to save the boy they flew.
But who would get there first?
But now the boy had washed ashore, Puff arrived to save the day, which made the witch so mad and sore, she shook her fist and screamed away. HR Pufnstuf, who's your friend when things get rough? HR Pufnstuf, can't do a little 'cause you can't do enough. HR Pufnstuf, he's your friend when things get rough. HR Pufnstuf, can't do a little 'cause you can't do enough.
What is this abomination?
In this show, Jimmy's flute inexplicably comes to life and is named Freddie.
Blimey, what's happening?
Hi, Jimmy.
You can talk.
Oh, careful.
But you're just a flute. I've never heard of a flute talking.
Did you ever speak to one before?
No?
So there. Easy now. Oh, that's better.
Terrific.
And you were wrong about flutes. We can be lonesome too. Will you be my friend?
Will I? Oh, boy. By the way, do you have a name?
Of course. It's Freddie.
Freddie Flute. That's a knockout.
Then what are we waiting for, pal? Let's go have some fun.
You bet.
I think it's creepy and it should be thrown into the depths of hell.
Jimmy and Freddie find a boat promising adventure on the kooky Living Island, home of dancing, talking trees, and singing frogs. The boat was actually owned and controlled by a wicked witch named Wilhelmina W. Witchypoo, played by Billy Hayes, who rode on a broomstick-like vehicle called the Vroom Broom. She used the boat to lure Jimmy and Freddie to her castle on Living Island, where she was going to take Jimmy prisoner and steal Freddie for her own purposes. The mayor of Living Island was a friendly, helpful anthropomorphic dragon named H.R. Pufnstuf. Since everything on Living Island was alive, any part of the Living Island sets could become a character, and did. There were dozens of additional characters, and they were usually voiced as a parody of famous film stars such as Mae West, W.C. Fields, Edward G. Robinson, or John Wayne. Many songs were sung on H.R. Pufnstuf, and in 1970, a soundtrack album was released on LP, cassette, and 8-track.
Behind the scenes.
It was at the 1968 premiere of Oliver that Wilde met brothers Sid and Marty Krofft, and he reportedly was to be paid the incredible sum of $1 million for a 5-year contract. This seems incredible given the show's $52,000 budget, even stretched out to a 5-year run that would have represented 23% of the budget. Years later, he states to have never been paid this sum. Marty Krofft accepted guardianship of Jack Wilde while the teenage boy was in America, away from his family, filming the show. Penny Marshall actually auditioned for Witchy Poo, but it was felt she wasn't right for the part. When stage veteran Billy Hayes came in next, she set into a maniacal cackle and hopped up onto a desk, and she was given the part on the spot. The H.R. Pufnstuf character was originally created for the Hemisphere 1968 World's Fair here in San Antonio, where the Kroffts produced a show called Kaleidoscope for the Coca-Cola Pavilion. The Krofft brothers successfully sued McDonald's over a TV commercial campaign that began in 1971, introducing the McDonaldland concept, and won an undisclosed amount of money. They also reportedly received regular royalty checks from McDonald's. In 2004, this show was ranked number 22 in TV Guide's list of the 25 top cult shows ever.
I think the boy did drugs and was hallucinating.
Any reference or suggestion of drug use is vehemently denied by creators Sid and Marty Krofft, and H.R. Pufnstuf is available on DVD. Number 2, it's Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp.
Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp. Stands for justice, he has no fear. He's the agent to call when trouble is near. Lance Link, you gotta come through. Everybody at 8 is counting on you. Pretty mighty heavy, an agent and a friend that shall stick by your side right to the end. Darwin is the leader on the side of good. Fight jump agents like a good ape should. Oh, Lance Link, what you gonna do? You gotta stop the jump, the job is up to you. Stand on the butcher, you better beware. Ruthless and cunning and he don't play fair. He's got an evil chauffeur and Credo's his name. And Dragon Woman's lovely, but she's wicked all the same. Oh, Lance Link, what you gonna do when that Doctor Strange man comes up to you? There's Ali Assassin and Wicked Wayne Foo. And the Dutch Susan looks can really fool you. Oh, Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp. Stands for justice, he has no fear. He's the agent to call when trouble is near. Lance Link, what you gonna do?
And with that somewhat politically incorrect opening, we have a series that defies categorization. A Saturday morning action-adventure live-action comedy starring chimpanzees with dubbed-over voices and a laugh track. Okay. With plots that made the skits of the monkeys look like high art, the series featured Lancelot Link, a pop star recruited to be a secret agent, and his female colleague, Mata Hari, working for APE, the Agency to Prevent Evil. They fought against Chimp, the criminal headquarters for the underworld's master plan. Actors Dayton Allen, Bernie Capel, and Joan Gerber voiced almost all of the voiceover work, much of it done ad-lib to match the mouths and actions of the already filmed animals. What do you think, Tommy?
I would never watch this. It's too disturbing for me to. Not pretty weird. Disturbingly weird.
If this sounds really familiar to Get Smart, you're right. Two of the creator-producers, Stan Burns and Mike Marmer, were both former writers of Get Smart. Stan Burns and Mike Marmer quit their jobs as head writers on The Carol Burnett Show to work on Lancelot Link. Both were previously writers on Get Smart. The show had an outrageous budget of over $1 million. It ran from January to April in 1970 on Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. Central, and it was the first show on the ABC network feed for the day. There were 17 total episodes. The show was rerun on Nick at Night, TV Land, and the then-named The Comedy Channel. A 1999 documentary short called I Created Lancelot Link was filmed, and you'll find it in the YouTube playlist. And a DVD of the series is actually available. Number 3. Airing on NBC in fall of 1970, Sid and Marty Krofft brought us The Bugaloos.
The Bugaloos?
The Bugaloos a summer breeze, happy as a summer breeze. The Bugaloos, we're in the air and everywhere.
Martha Raye, Billy Barty, and Sharon Baird return to the world of Krofft, joined by pretty much unknown actors as Bugaloos, IQ the Grasshopper, Harmony the Bumblebee, Courage the Ladybug, and Joy the Butterfly. Instead of using the usual Krofft formula of someone from the real world stumbling into a fantastical universe, we are simply presented with the characters living in their own world. The Bugaloos are a peace-loving and hippie-like rock and roll band with bug wings who live in magical Tranquility Forest. Their nemesis, Benita Bizarre, lived in a giant jukebox and used it to broadcast her own brand of blaring, obnoxious, unpleasant music.
Crazy cat, Grandma.
Benita is aided by her two bumbling henchmen, the anthropomorphic speakers, Woofer and Tweeter. 17 episodes were shot on videotape in Los Angeles. The title song's lyrics were written by Norman Gimbel, and its music was composed by Charles Fox, names that should be familiar to viewers of Wonder Woman. They also wrote and composed Roberta Flack's hit, Killing Me Softly, with his song. Like H.R. Pufnstuf, an album of songs from the show was released in 1970.
Behind the scenes.
This was the second series to be produced by Sid and Marty Krofft after H.R. Pufnstuf. It also was the first one to be shot on videotape rather than be filmed. Touted as the British version of the Monkees, the Bugaloos attracted more than 5,000 young actors and actresses to audition for an open casting call, including 19-year-old Phil Collins for the role of IQ. He was one of 3 finalists that were being considered for that role. Oddly enough, a miscommunication between the Kroffts and the actors resulted in them returning to England the December after filming against the Kroffts' wishes. As a result, a potential second season was ultimately scrapped, along with their plans for a movie.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Looking for a Saturday morning place to be. Step inside the magical world of ABC. Button your shoe, we're waiting for you to have some fun. Ready or not, you found the spot, and here we come. Meet, the road runner is hurrying by. Meet, keep out of his way. And in Lidsville, kids will find that every hand has got a face and something to say. Funky Phantom, he's a ghost from history. How he got to where he is a mystery. Make a stop at Curiosity Shop and find fantasy is everywhere if it's in your mind. Boom, boom, yeah. Boom, 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 yeah. The Jackson 5 are coming to town. So if you're looking for a Saturday morning place to be, step inside the magical world of ABC.
So your father's a nerd.
Unfortunately, there's no player's guide to raising a family. But this podcast is meant to be a family's guide to nerdism.
Join us, Alec and Zuby, as we go in depth as to what it's like to raising a family of nerdlings and the adventures and hardships of fatherhood.
We dive deep into our favorite nerd topics and talk to you about how it's related to raising a family.
You can find So Your Father's a Nerd on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio.
And now, back to our show.
Number 4, Lidsville. Our 4th show to consider, and the 3rd entry from Sid and Marty Krofft, starred ex-Munster Butch Patrick, who turned 18 during production of this show. Returning Sid and Marty Krofft regulars Billy Hayes, Sharon Baird, Felix Silla, as well as Charles Nelson Riley.
How's that for a topper?
Lidsville aired on ABC in the fall of 1971, and 17 episodes were produced. It was rerun on NBC as well, starting in the fall of 1973, so it aired for a full 3 years on Saturday morning. What was Lidsville about? Let's find out.
In the middle of the
summer in the middle of a park, there began a great adventure for a boy whose name was Mark. He had come to see the magic man along with all the children, and 'twas so began the day that Mark was never to forget. He performed all sorts of miracles, and Mark was so impressed that when the time arrived to go, he lagged behind the rest. Then quietly he did return the secret of the hat to learn, but everyone had gone away and darkness held its threat. The moment that he touched the hat, the room began to glow, and as he put it down and ran, the hat began to grow and 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 grow. Stunned and he was fascinated, still he had to see there was something deep inside the hat. What could that something be? Then cautiously each step he took, he climbed upon the brim to look, and all at once the hat began to shake and rock. Look out! Falling, falling, into the hat he fell, spinning, turning, whirling, twirling. Down, down. And when he looked into the skies, he couldn't believe his ears or eyes. Lidsville is the cookiest, Lidsville is the kickiest, Lidsville is the grooviest, Lidsville is a living and friend. If you get a chance to go there, you'll be glad you did, 'cause everybody who goes to Lidsville really flips his lid.
How's that for a topper?
That is a terrible Photoshop fail.
Yes, we're back to the familiar Krofft formula with teenage Mark falling into the land of living hats, where characters both lived in hats, were hats, and the entire world was in a hat.
Okay.
Where magician Horatio J. Hoodoo flew around in his Hatamaran zapping inhabitants of Lidsville with magic bolts. Some episodes depicted Mark trying to escape Lidsville.
Turns out he found hell.
With the cavalcade of characters like Weenie the Genie, Raunchy Rabbit, the Bad Hats, Madame Ring-a-Ding, and plenty of others, this show had the largest cast of players yet on a Sid and Marty Krofft show, 28 in all, and was utter insanity. Unlike earlier shows, H.R. Pufnstuf and the Bugaloos, which had smaller and more benign settings, which now adult viewers remember fondly, more than a few recall being terrified by this show and the mean-spiritedness of villain Horatio Hoodoo. Viewed now, Butch Patrick looked genuinely uneasy as a fish out of water and the intended victim of Charles Nelson Riley's endless schemes, which included attempts to kill him, something that would never be allowed on a kids' show today.
Behind the scenes.
It's rumored that the Kroffts originally planned to cast Mark Lester in Lidsville. Now, Lester was Jack Wilde's co-star as the title character, Oliver. Even if this isn't true, it's interesting that the Butch Patrick character's name is Mark. The opening sequence to Lidsville was filmed at Six Flags Over Texas. To fill out the large cast, the Kroffts hired an acting troupe of little people, known as Hermine's Midgets. Characters from Lidsville were featured in the Ice Capades during the early 1970s. I remember that. The show has popped up here and there in popular culture. Audio samples from Lidsville can be heard in Marilyn Manson's 1994 song Dope Hat. The show was parodied on the HBO late-night comedy program Mr. Show, but my favorite reference has to be in the Millennium episode Jose Chung's Doomsday Defense, where Charles Nelson Riley reprises his X-Files role of Jose Chung, and he makes an in-character reference to his Lidsville role.
His lovable flamboyancy made him not only a literary icon, but a cultural one as well. Why, he even made a cameo appearance in an award-winning film at Cannes.
Nobody ever comes out of there alive.
In 2011, it was announced that DreamWorks Animation was adapting Lidsville to make a 3D animated musical, but the production was troubled and the idea was abandoned. This is the second Krofft show that seems to reference drug use. Look up the slang meaning of the term lid if you don't know what I'm talking about. Again, Sid and Marty Krofft deny any drug influence on their concepts or shows. And Lidsville is available on DVD. Number 5. Our fifth show is the fourth creation by the Kroffts. Airing on NBC in the fall of 1973 through October of 1975, 2 seasons of Sigmund and the Sea Monsters were produced with 29 episodes. The show was about 2 brothers that find and befriend a sea monster at the beach. It's Sigmund and the Sea Monsters.
Sigmund, you are a rotten sea monster.
Sigmund, you're through.
Scram! Get out of here.
There's nothing like a day out on the beach when all it does is rain. You need somebody else to make the sun come out again. When you find that special someone you never expected to, it'll make you believe in magic. It could change your life for you. Talk about friends, knocking at your door, friends. That's what friends are for, friends. If you're young or old, everybody needs friends. Now friends, what it's all about, friends. And friends won't let you down. You gotta have friends.
Johnny Whitaker and Scott Colden had previously worked together the prior year on the Disney made-for-TV movie Mystery of Dracula's Castle. Now 13 and 11, they were 2 brothers that were friends of Sigmund, a juvenile sea monster that had been kicked out of his home for refusing to frighten people. The boys hide Sigmund in their clubhouse, and we have the premise for our show. This turned the typical Krofft formula on its head, and instead of a human child in a strange, fantastical land, this show has a fantastical character come into the real world. And yes, the sea monsters were mascot-type costumes worn by small performers. Billy Barty returning to the world of Krofft as Sigmund.
I know it's just a person in a costume, but that looks like something straight out of a nightmare.
In the first season, plots revolved around hiding Sigmund from their housekeeper Zelda and nosy neighbor Mrs. Eldels, notably played by Margaret Hamilton, as well as the sheriff, and keeping Sigmund from being abducted by his family members. I personally was scared by Big Mama when I was a kid.
He has 1 tooth, so he might cut his gums while trying to eat something.
Oddly, the parents are on perpetual vacation and are never seen on the show. As the case with many of the Krofft shows, music played a big part. In at least 10, by my count, of the 17 first season episodes, the boys, usually Johnny, sang, and the songs typically became music montages integrated into the plot, and usually revolved around some girl he met, but not always.
You better run, better hide. We gotta keep you outside. Be careful, Sigmund. Cover your tracks when you leave, 'cause you know Zelda won't believe your friendly Sigmund. Whoever heard of a friendly sea monster, loving and laughing his life away?
No, Uncle Siggy. Sigmund's not back yet, but don't worry. Next time you're in town, we'll have him for you. Bye. I'll get you for this, you dingbat. Letting Sigmund get away. This is your Big Daddy talking.
Makes me smile. I like his style. I hope he stays a while. And he's doing fine. He's a friend of mine. You better run, you better hide. We gotta keep you out of sight. Be careful, Sigmund. He's a friend of mine. You better run, you better hide. We gotta keep you out of sight. Be careful, Sigmund. He's a friend of mine.
With the exception of the fantastical elements of sea monsters, and other than needing haircuts, the boys lived normal lives, did their chores, recycled, and kept their room clean. All of this was done without being preachy or beating the viewer over the head with a moral lesson. This was balanced by the outrageous home life of the sea monster family, which seemed to parody the life of the boys. Season 2 had some changes. Johnny was now 14, and with puberty in full force, his voice was undergoing daily changes. Thus, gone were all the songs that peppered the first season. But they did get a good one recorded, and thus we got a new theme song for Season 2.
Let me tell you a tale, a very scary tale about two boys who were surfing one day on a very weird beach round Dead Man's Point, where there are haunted sea caves, they say. And strange sea monsters have been sighted there. If you're traveling in the area, beware, 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 beware.
Sigmund, you're a rotten sea monster.
You're a disgrace to the family.
Go out and scare a human or you're through.
Oh, come on, come on. Meanwhile, back on the beach, Johnny and Scott are combing the rocks, unaware that behind them Sigmund lurks, prepared to give them a shock. Boo! In total surprise, the boys eye this blob, what can it be? And then it groans and moves, and lo, it's a monster from the sea. Now Sigmund, the sea monster, and Johnny and Scott are friends, the finest friends that ever could be on the land or on the sea. Now Sigmund, the sea monster, and Johnny and Scott are friends, the finest of friends that ever could be on the land or on the sea.
Rip Taylor joins the cast as a magical sea genie, Sheldon, adding an even more fantastical element to the show. Soon Sheldon's nephew Shelby was added to the cast, because why not? As well as character actress Fran Ryan as new housekeeper Gertrude. Her character didn't last long, and Zelda soon returned. Jack Wilde and Eve Plum also made guest appearances.
Behind the scenes.
In May of 1974, a set fire at Goldwyn Studios did $2 million of damage and burned up all the sets for the show and most of the costumes. Production was shut down for weeks, and the show moved away from the sea monster family subplot out of necessity. Fortunately, Rip Taylor had already joined the cast, and the focus of the show was easily moved to stories driven by his magical antics. The songs for the show were written by Danny Jansen, Bobby Hart, and Wes Farrell, collectively responsible for hit songs for The Monkees, The Partridge Family, various and sundry Saturday morning TV shows, as well as the McCoys hit Hang On Sloopy. An album was released in 1973 called Friends, music from the television series Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. The show was reincarnated on Amazon Video in 2016 as a new modern take on the series, but so far only one episode has been produced. Tommy and I sat down and watched it today, and I think he was entertained, even if he would only admit it wasn't as disturbing as the original. Amazon says new episodes are on the way, but it's been a year, and they better get on it quickly because kids tend to age out of these roles really fast. If you check it out, see if you can spot the cameos by Sid and Marty Krofft, as well as Johnny Whitaker. Sigmund and the Sea Monsters is available on DVD.
Next time on Forgotten TV.
Out of the sky and out of time, coming to see all that they can find. UFO, fine fun. They go to the moon now, they've been to the sun. Please, please take me along.
From the Lost Saucer and Monster Squad to the Krofft Super Show, it's the conclusion of Saturday morning weirdness. Next time on Forgotten TV.
Don't get left behind. Take a trip with us today. We will lead you to a land of dreams. Broadcast some super shows. They will blow your mind away.
Forgotten TV is not affiliated with Sid and Marty Krofft Television Productions or any network or production company involved in the making of any show mentioned in this episode. All mentioned series and associated characters are the property of the respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended. Audio clips are included for the purposes of review, commentary, and criticism only, and are not intended to infringe. And I'd like to thank the following YouTube channels and websites for making the audio clips possible: Vintage Entertainment, TV's Greatest, Pufnstuf Productions, Mind Warp 105, Don Miller, Mr. Mad Hatter 106, as well as SidandMartyKrofft.com, as well as the 1998 book Sid and Marty Krofft, A Critical Study of Saturday Morning Children's Television, 1969 to 1993. Forgotten TV is a member of the Frequent Wire Podcast Network. To find other great podcasts, click the link to Frequent Wire in the show notes. If you listen to the show on iTunes or Stitcher, please rate and review it, and subscribe on any podcast app. Be sure and like the Forgotten TV Facebook page, and like us on Twitter. All that is linked up for you at forgotten.tv. I'm Chris Cooling, and this has been Forgotten TV.